Lawyers, which case left you on the brink of losing your license, but which worked out at the last minute? Story 1. Groom's father dies of stroke before ceremony. Wedding proceeds. Groom's father died of a stroke an hour before the ceremony. That moment still haunts me. I was there when the medics told everyone the bad news. They did. They left it up to the mother of the groom, and she said, "In our culture we celebrate life, and don't grieve in public. So we're going to get through the day and figure it out tomorrow." I ended up taking the couple away during cocktail hour for more portraits, instead of them joining cocktail hour like they planned to. I figured they didn't want to hear "sorry for your loss" for an entire hour from guests. I actually just saw them as guests at another wedding this past weekend, and they mentioned how thankful they were that we did those portraits during cocktail hour instead. Story 2. Groomsman and pastor arrested for DUI during cocktail hour. My very first wedding that I ever shot was at a golf course, and post-ceremony we were shooting the bride and groom couples portraits, when one of the groomsmen, as well as the pastor who performed the ceremony, decided that the alcohol at the open bar during cocktail hour was not good enough for them. We were in a rural community with the golf course, at the end of a long road up a hillside, and at the entrance to that road off the freeway there was a liquor store. So both the groomsmen and the pastor decide that they are going to drive down to the liquor store to pick up a bottle of their favorite to bring back to the event. Only problem was, both of them had already been served at least 2 drinks. Well, 30 to 45 minutes later, cocktail hour ends, and the guests are herded into the dining hall for the grand entrance of the bride and groom. We start lining up the bridesmaids and groomsmen for each of them to have their own dancing moment as they come through the doors before the couple. And it's then that we realize that nobody has seen one of the groomsmen for about 40 minutes now. At first we assumed maybe they were in the bathroom, or possibly that they had gone out for a smoke break and didn't realize how long they had been gone. Groom says he absolutely cannot do the grand entrance without his groomsmen there as well, and so we hold the grand entrance to the reception, dinner, and all for about another hour, while we are looking for the missing groomsmen. Kids are screaming, adults are hangry, half the wedding is drunk already, and there's still no idea when dinner will actually be served. People are seriously concerned at this point, wondering if he got lost, and what happened to him as he seemingly up and vanished. Finally, a little over an hour after the grand entrance was supposed to happen, we get a call from the local police department. Our missing groomsmen, as well as the missing pastor who had snuck under the radar as we were all frantically looking for the groomsmen, were both sitting in the drunk tank. Both had been arrested on a DUI, driving under the influence. Story 3. Guest photographer wears white dress to lesbian wedding and interferes. Lovely country house, sunny day, 2 gorgeous brides, and the photographer guest who was tilted. I was hired to photograph the day instead. She wore a white dress to the wedding. Yes, a short blonde lady wore a white dress to a lesbian wedding, where one of the brides was a short blonde lady. She kept trying to stand in front of me for images, or would have her husband pushing into me, or trying to knock my camera over. Constantly lurking behind me when I doing the group photos, and asking people to look at her. The dancing images were ridiculous. Her husband really upped the ante, but I'm a big bloke at 6'2", and don't really get overly intimated. Utterly, potterly, painful human, but she can go get lost. The wedding got featured on Ireland's biggest wedding blog, and I've not seen sight nor sound of her business since. Story 4. Second shooter shows up hallucinating on acid, ruins wedding photos. Different from a guest, but I was once shooting a wedding on Memorial Day, and my second shooter texted me at 6 p.m. the night before, telling me he had just dropped a tab of acid. He showed up, on time, the following morning still hallucinating, and attempted to photograph the day with me. The entire day was an absolute mess, and I wasn't able to use a single image that he took that day, which was a massive headache for me to have to deal with. Story 5. Rain-soaked dove release turns chaotic at pier wedding. The wedding was on a pier. The couple and planner checked radar for rain, deciding to hold it outside despite rain clouds. 3 minutes in, it rained. A man appeared with a heart-shaped wicker box containing doves. The bride, surprised, opened it, but the doves resisted, flying into her face, one caught in her weave. Heavy rain and winds followed, with an officiant continuing calmly. A family member screamed, "Just say I do! Kiss!" They did, running through rain. The photos made the messy day look beautiful, the couple said. Story 6. Aunt's inappropriate dance exposure caught on camera. An aunt, possibly of the bride or groom, wore a dress likely meant as a blouse and got drunk at the reception, dancing in a circle. I photographed her, later noticing on my computer her dress had ridden up, causing a very unflattering exposure. Working for an event company, I turned over raw files for editing. I forgot to warn about the exposure, and it appeared in the final album sent to the couple, featuring the unfortunate photo of the aunt. Story 7. Father-daughter dance reveals palpable hatred. A father-daughter dance where their mutual hatred was evident, making it painful. We felt weird, including those photos in the album. Another incident involved giant paper Chinese lantern decorations catching fire indoors in a wooden building, a close second for worst moments captured. Story 8. Groom hits on photographer shortly after vows. My girlfriend, a wedding photographer, captured a groom hitting on her 15 minutes after vows, in full view of his new wife. From the wife's face, it seemed the marriage wasn't open, adding tension to the moment. Story 9. Groom's bloody nose ruins bride's dress before ceremony. Before the ceremony, the groom sneezed a bloody nose onto the bride's beaded dress, caused by nerves. We stopped photos for emergency cleaning with Sprite soda at the hotel, cutting 2 hours of pre-ceremony shots. I had a perfect mid-sneeze shot with blood flying, edited out as requested, and the bride was understanding. Story 10. Drunken groomsmen disrupt ceremony with fart and stumbles. Hired to shoot candid photos, I joined groomsmen who were drinking heavily, getting obliterated before the ceremony. They stumbled up the aisle, the groom nearly falling, while bridesmaids showed anger. During silence, a groomsman farted loudly, causing laughter and gasps. The bride looked furious, the groom slurred vows, and the reception worsened with the groom vomiting, adding to the chaos captured. Story 11. Wedding shut down after drug-fueled chaos. At a wedding, there were over 30 lines of cocaine on every toilet counter, freely available, and guests brought alcohol from cars to tables. The police were called, leading to the wedding being shut down. In another wedding, the bride arrived an hour late, the cake was smashed, the mother got lost, and the ceremony was canceled due to another wedding. Later, the groom was arrested for sharing illicit images of his new wife's children online. The chaos and illegal activities made it one of the most disastrous events witnessed, highlighting how substance abuse can derail celebrations entirely. The aftermath involved legal consequences and family fallout, leaving lasting scars on everyone involved. Story 12. Wedding ring lost in the Hudson River. During a shoot at Patello's in Jersey City, overlooking the Manhattan skyline, the videographer filmed the bride and groom kissing while holding their rings. The bride's wedding band fell from her hand and rolled into the Hudson River. There were gasps, silence, and shock, especially from the bride, who teared up with her hands covering her face. This incident underscored the risks of posing near water or edges, turning a romantic moment into a heartbreaking loss. Despite the tragedy, the couple continued, but the memory of the lost symbol of their union lingered, affecting the day's joy. Story 13. Hunger and space ruined the first dance. At a small, low-budget wedding with a walking dinner, guests were served tiny sandwiches at noon, and later small snacks like a mini tomato with 2 shrimps, spaced out over hours. By evening, the bride ordered lasagna for herself, ignoring guests. The photographer, under contract for proper feeding, left for an hour to eat, missing most events. The first dance, a tango, was hindered by a narrow 2-meter by 10-meter dance floor and hunger, with guests eating fries, ignoring the couple trampling in place. The lack of planning led to dissatisfaction and awkward captures. Story 14. Groom's wild behavior at reception. At a reception, the groom tore off his shirt, threw cake at guests while bare-chested, and yelled, creating a chaotic scene. This behavior, possibly influenced by alcohol, provided unusual photo opportunities but was disruptive. The groom's actions shocked attendees and made for tense moments throughout the evening, with the bride appearing embarrassed. It highlighted how excessive drinking can turn a celebration into a spectacle of poor judgment, affecting the overall atmosphere and the quality of captured memories. Story 15. Car crash on the way to the wedding. On the way to a wedding, the photographer flipped and totaled their car. The ambulance expected hospital transport, but the fire chief gave a ride to the venue, aspirin, and wished them well. Arriving 3 minutes late, the photographer shot the entire day, producing one of their best galleries that year, with no gear broken and only a small scratch, an unbelievable outcome. The adrenaline and determination turned a potential disaster into a triumph, though the physical toll was significant. Story 16. Fire alarm soaked the wedding dress. Pre-ceremony, while getting detail shots of the dress, the videographer accidentally set off the hotel fire alarm and sprinkler system, pouring nasty black water from the ceiling. The hotel was evacuated for 45 minutes, and the dress, cleaned by bridesmaids and staff for an hour, remained stained and smelly, delaying the ceremony, but the day continued without major conflict. The incident caused panic, but also brought the team together in crisis management. Story 17. Drug-fueled chaos and violence at the wedding. At a UK wedding, 18 girls got ready in a small house with cocaine lines on the table and children running around. The groom and best man, wearing police tags and drunk, brought beer and made gang signs in photos. The ceremony stopped 4 times due to bad language. At the reception, a boy nearly killed a dove. The bride punched her father at the bar, and the couple fought, with the groom shouting insults. The venue was smashed later, leading to arrests, and the next wedding involved the arresting officers. The level of dysfunction was overwhelming. Story 18. Drunk best man damaged photographer's car. At a wedding, the 20-year-old best man was drunk by 10 a.m., found splayed on the hood of the photographer's new TT, sliding around with a laptop blasting music. When asked to get off, he responded with a rude refusal, nearly causing the photographer to walk out, highlighting the tension and disrespect faced. The incident escalated emotions, making the rest of the day strained and underscoring the challenges of dealing with intoxicated participants. Story 19. High ISO ruined wedding photos. During a wedding, the photographer, distracted, set the ISO, International Organization for Standardization Sensitivity, too high for 75% of the photos, resulting in grainy images. Despite using Topaz, the best software, the photos were subpar. Working with a coworker, the photographer felt mortified when she showed others, believing she was just being nice despite liking them, adding to the professional embarrassment. The technical error haunted the delivery process. Story 20. Tragedy strikes at private garden wedding. At a May 2021 private garden wedding during COVID, coronavirus disease, guests started water ballooning, and the groom's witness, escaping, ran onto a public road and was hit by a van, dying on the spot at age 18. As a former paramedic, the photographer coordinated rescue efforts, calling for a medevac, but the witness died. The father asked for a blanket to cover him, and the bride and groom were ticketed $800 each for violating COVID laws, adding to the tragedy. The event turned from joy to mourning instantly. Story 21. Uninvited photographer causes chaos. I was hired by the bride's parents after the original photographer canceled. I spent the morning photographing the bridal party getting ready. At the church, I noticed another photographer and assumed he was a second shooter. But he kept getting in my way during the service, making me miss shots. Before the reception, I mentioned to the bride how the other photographer was bothering me, and she revealed, Her parents only hired me. It turned out the other photographer got a voicemail from the bride's dad who thought he had called me with wedding details. It was awkward telling him he wasn't the actual photographer. I showed him my contract, proving I was paid weeks in advance. The parents eventually gave him some money for his photos, but he left halfway through the reception. Story 22. Tragic heart attack during wedding. In my 25-plus years shooting weddings, this was the worst and most tragic. I photographed a wedding in June where the groom had a massive heart attack during the best man's toast at dinner and passed away, just 2 hours after marrying. Everyone was in shock. I was asked to edit a few images for the new bride to display at his memorial the following week. It was the hardest editing I've ever done. I delivered the final images, and the bride, now a widow, was happy with them, as they were the last photos she had with her husband. Story 23. Rain, delays, and family drama. The couple was supposed to meet me at a park an hour before the ceremony for photos, but they arrived 50 minutes late without apologizing, leaving me with 10 minutes. It started raining after 2 minutes, and the bride complained. At the venue, the ceremony was indoors, in a room with no windows, all lights off except one in the back and 2 candles near the altar, plus the bride had a light-up bouquet. During the ceremony, the groom's mother stood in front of me, using her point-and-shoot camera with flash and an orange assist beam. The bride and groom disappeared for over an hour during the reception, fighting with the groom's mom in the parking lot. Story 24. Backyard wedding turns into family feud. The wedding was in their backyard, and it seemed they underestimated the work involved. When I arrived, the couple and family were stressed, which led to tempers flaring and bickering. During family formals, the groom stormed out. At dinner, the mother of the bride called her daughter a real bridezilla in front of guests. The bride sobbed the entire 20-minute drive to the evening portrait location, even asking me to turn back a few times. It was a heartbreaking day, and I usually leave weddings smiling, but not this time. Story 25. Wife goes into labor during wedding shoot. Getting ready for a wedding, my wife went into labor a month early, despite me blocking out dates near her due date. She usually shoots with me and knew the importance, so she told me to go. I explained to the bride and groom, who were understanding, and we rushed through the shot so I could leave early. I was sweating through my shirt all day. I made it to the hospital within an hour to see my son being born. Everything worked out, but it was stressful, and I'm pretty sure it took years off my life. Story 26. Bride refuses to exit car over superstition. At a massive Catholic church, the bride and groom wanted to avoid seeing each other before the ceremony. While photographing the groom and groomsmen in a garden area, the wedding coordinator found me furious. The bride, parked 15 feet from a side entry, refused to get out, fearing the groom might see her, despite being out of view. Her mom and bridesmaids covered the SUV windows with blankets and clothing, delaying everything due to her superstition. Story 27. Grandmother's medical emergency during family photos. At a wedding, the bride's grandparents, both in wheelchairs, joined family photos beforehand. Just before the ceremony, the grandmother had a crisis, and paramedics took her to the hospital, with the grandfather and an uncle following. The ceremony proceeded, but the reception was subdued, with no dancing. Later, I learned she passed away, and those were the last photos of the couple together. Story 28. Groom threatens to throw camera in ocean. During a wedding, the groom told me, "If you don't stop taking pictures of me, I'll throw your camera in the ocean." He seemed there out of obligation, not joy. The bride was elsewhere, so I switched to a 70-200 lens, photographing him discreetly in ninja mode, avoiding confrontation and continuing my work despite his threat. Story 29. Bride wasted, misses reception after IV treatment. As a second shooter, I covered a wedding where the bride got extremely drunk the night before, arriving late to hair and makeup, vomiting throughout. At the venue, a historic battlefield, she kept vomiting during portraits. She made it through the ceremony but disappeared at the reception, later found with EMS, emergency medical services, getting an IV, intravenous. The groom was furious, saying, "She did this to herself." Story 30. Missing groomsman found drenched in woods. At an outdoor farm wedding, the brother of the groom went missing. 2 hours later, he crawled out of the woods, drenched, suit pants ripped, with no recollection of what happened. He was very drunk. 8 years later, I shot his own wedding, recalling the bizarre incident, joking it was aliens, not just alcohol, that caused his disappearance. Story 31. Matron of honor goes into labor during photos. During pre-ceremony photos, the matron of honor went into labor. Determined to finish, she pushed through, and I used golf carts to make it easier, shooting bridal party photos first. By the ceremony, she couldn't stand, sat in the back, hugged the bride, then went to the birthing center. She had her baby right before we cut the cake at the reception, an absolute trooper. Story 32. Bride has manic episodes, disrupts shot list. I photographed a bride with dissociative manic episodes, unaware beforehand. 1 minute she'd cry happily, the next, throw her bouquet at the groom in anger over forgotten items. They'd been together 18 years, and everyone knew her struggles. I had to make decisions on the day, as her condition made following the shot list impossible, a memorable experience of mental illness up close. Story 33. Groom fights brother over seating at church. Before a ceremony, the groom, in his 40s, had a fist fight with his brother in the church hallway over dinner seating. Their mom intervened, grabbing their ears like children, breaking it up, scolding them, and forcing a hug. It was chaotic, but she handled it. Story 34. Groom's endless speech on bride's features. I hadn't eaten all day at this wedding and was exhausted, unable to even grab a canapé after the ceremony. Walking into the reception, the groom launched into his speech, which lasted about 20 minutes. He spent 90% of it talking about the bride's beautiful little hands, beautiful little face, and beautiful little heart. It was the longest groom speech I'd ever heard, and I was starving and just wanted a break. Story 35. Bride excludes stepchild from wedding. At one wedding, the bride and groom already had 2 kids together, and the groom had a son from a previous relationship. It was clear the bride didn't care for the son, who adored his dad. During the ceremony, the son sat with his grandmother, bawling, and was excluded from the bridal party and family photos. It felt strange and wrong to see him left out like that. Story 36. Drunk guest dances on photographer. During dance floor photos, I was sweating and trying to work when a drunk guest kept coming over, thinking he was funny, and tried to dance against me. It was uncomfortable and disruptive, and I had to keep dodging him while trying to capture the moments, making it hard to focus on my job. Story 37. Bride's inappropriate underwear choice. At my first wedding shoot, the bride had just gotten a breast augmentation and spent 90% of her time in the bridal suite in her underwear. During the creative session, she got bored and wanted to drink, leaving me, a newbie, struggling to direct. Later, they complained the photos weren't vintagey enough and had too many of her in underwear, leading to payment disputes and legal threats. Story 38. Father downgrades wedding package secretly. The father of the bride, paying for the whole wedding, called me 3 days before the event to downgrade the package the bride had chosen, canceling the album without telling her. When I delivered the photos, the bride asked where her album was, only to find out her dad had made the change secretly, causing confusion and tension. Story 39. Bride forgets underwear, makes bold suggestion. At one wedding, the bride forgot to bring underwear for her see-through, lacy dress and wore nothing underneath. Walking back from the creative session, she loudly whispered to her husband, "I got no panties on. Should we sneak into the bathroom and make a baby quick?" I pretended not to hear, focusing on my work. Story 40. Uncomfortable engagement session and bridal tantrum. Many years ago, I photographed a wedding for a very odd couple. During their engagement session, when I asked for a quick kiss, they kissed passionately, which was uncomfortable. They also brought uncooperative, crying kids. On the wedding day, I arrived at the hotel at the planned time for getting ready photos, but the bride nastily asked, "Why are you here early?" I reminded her of our timeline. After the ceremony, during bride and groom photos, she had a childish tantrum, lying on the grass, saying she was sick of taking photos. We were behind schedule, so I quickly had the groom lie down with her for shots. At the reception, with limited coverage left, we rushed through key moments. When I left, the bride asked if she got free prints, and they stared blankly when I explained. I never got a thank you after delivering the photos. Story 41. Photographer haggled down and criticized. One photographer shared their worst wedding experience as a new primary shooter, charging $1,000 after being haggled down from $1,500. Despite a good portfolio, and using flash and prime lenses, the bride was demanding and expected more. She threatened not to write a review to avoid tarnishing their early career, leaving the photographer frustrated after an 8-hour day. Story 42. Discounted coverage turns chaotic. A photographer recounted negotiating a massive discount for a half-day shoot with 2 photographers, swayed by the couple's tight budget story. A week before, the bride claimed the priest banned church photos, leading to added morning prep coverage. On the day, the priest allowed photos, revealing the lie. They worked all day without food, unlike other vendors, and the couple left a dig in the videographer's review for leaving after the first dance, despite the extended work. Story 43. Horse carriage accident and helicopter scare. A photographer with over 20 years' experience shared 2 incidents: a horse and carriage flipping over, breaking the mother of the bride's leg, and a near helicopter crash during an elopement, requiring a new helicopter to fly out. These events highlight the unpredictable nature of wedding photography and dealing with stressed clients. Story 44. Bride and high mother cause chaos at cake cutting. A photographer described shooting for pennies in Colorado, arriving to find the bride popping pills and the high mother fighting. During cake cutting, the bride asked if she could shove cake in her mom's face, leading to a reflexive cane swing, causing the mother to fall unconscious, bleeding from the fall. An ambulance was called, killing the vibe, and the planner tipped them to leave. Story 45. Groom's brother ruins reception with sudden outburst. A photographer recalled a reception where the groom's brother suddenly confronted the bride over an old issue with his girlfriend's daughter, swearing and making a scene before storming off. The groom's parents blamed the bride, leaving the photographer feeling sorry for her future in-law dynamics amidst an otherwise fine day. Story 46. Bride's elopement turns into post-wedding fury. The same photographer also shared an elopement that went perfectly, with happy clients initially. After sending preview photos, while on holiday, they faced calls from the venue and celebrant, with the bride livid, claiming delayed photos upset her son, who was crying and not eating. This was a 180 from her earlier demeanor, causing a stressful confrontation. Story 47. Starving bride delays photos with endless eating. A photographer shared a cute incident post-ceremony where the nervous bride, starving, kept eating cocktail hour food, delaying photos as her mouth was full. When asked to pose, she innocently suggested photographing others, unaware they were there for her, leading to a laughable moment before she cooperated. Story 48. Escaped dogs disrupt remote wedding reception. A photographer recounted a wedding at a private home with golden retrievers, gated off during the reception. A caterer left the gate open, and the dogs, without collars, escaped into tall grass as it got dark. The bride cried, the owner blew a whistle, and guests searched, halting the party until the dogs were found, with the DJ avoiding, "Who let the dogs out?" Story 49. Bride bumps coke during hair and makeup. A photographer shared a comical incident where the bride was doing lines of coke while getting ready, with the groom seemingly the only sober person, looking defeated by the end. It didn't interfere with the photography but highlighted the chaotic, substance-involved atmosphere of the wedding day. Story 50. Groomsman pranks groom with dress. Hot dog mascots crash wedding. At one wedding, a groomsman tricked the groom into thinking the bride changed her mind on a first look, appearing in a wedding gown, which was fun. Another wedding was crashed by hot dog mascots as a surprise from the bride's sister, making it hilarious and unexpected. However, at another event, the groom's mom had a brain aneurysm during the reception, and after an ambulance took her away, the couple continued the party, leaving the photographer uncomfortable when she had a second episode at the hospital, though she recovered. Story 51. Bride hospitalized for alcohol poisoning during formals. At a wedding before the pandemic, the bride, too anxious to eat, drank half a bottle of expensive champagne and wine after the ceremony, leading to alcohol poisoning. She was taken to the hospital during formals, spending over 12 hours on intravenous fluids. Thankfully, it was a 2-day wedding, and she rallied for the reception the next day, but the incident was a major disruption. Story 52. Groomsman and pastor arrested for DUI during reception. At the first wedding I shot, during cocktail hour with an open bar, the pastor and a groomsman drove 2 miles to a liquor store for special liquor not offered, getting arrested for DUIs, driving under the influence on the way back. The bride and groom, delayed for their grand entrance, were furious as the search for the missing groomsman lasted 40 minutes, and dinner was delayed, straining friendships. Story 53. Bride's last-minute maid of honor replacement causes tension. At a beach house wedding, I noticed the bride was in a mood. During get-ready photos, the maid of honor kept turning her wine glass, revealing her name wasn't Sarah. It turned out she was a last-minute replacement, the alternate bridesmaid, ready in case others didn't show. The situation added stress, and we rushed to edit and deliver photos before potential marital issues. Story 54. Cigarette starts fire outside church during prep. Working for a company, I hired my husband as a second shooter for a church wedding in a rough neighborhood. While photographing the women getting ready, I saw a man throw a cigarette butt on dry grass, starting a fire on a hot day underfoot. Unable to find the pastor, I had my husband put it out with a bucket of water, an unexpected firefighting duty during the shoot. Story 55. Bride's dress catches fire during sparkler exit. At a nighttime wedding, the couple planned a sparkler exit. While shooting, the bride's long tool train brushed against a sparkler, catching fire. Guests screamed, and the groom stomped it out, but the dress was singed. The bride laughed it off, but the moment was chaotic, and I captured the panic before the flames were extinguished. Story 56. Groom's ex shows up and causes a scene. During a backyard wedding, the groom's ex-girlfriend arrived uninvited, drunk, and started yelling about how he should have chosen her during the toasts. Security escorted her out, but the bride was visibly shaken, and the mood soured. I had to adjust angles to avoid capturing the drama in the background of reception shots. Story 57. Venue power outage delays entire wedding. At a rural venue, the power went out 30 minutes before the ceremony due to a storm. No backup generator, so we used phone flashlights for getting ready shots. The ceremony was delayed 2 hours, and the reception ran on candlelight. The couple was furious with the venue, and I struggled to get clear shots in near darkness. Story 58. Bride's father punches photographer over photo request. While setting up family formals, I asked the bride's father to step closer for a group shot. He got angry, saying I was bossing him around, and punched me in the shoulder. The bride apologized profusely, but it left me rattled for the rest of the day, and I avoided him in photos. Story 59. Drunk bridesmaid falls into cake. During the cake cutting, a bridesmaid, clearly intoxicated, tripped and fell face first into the 3-tiered cake, knocking it over. The room went silent, and the bride burst into tears. I captured the aftermath but felt awful delivering those photos, though the couple later laughed about it. Story 60. Groom forgets rings, proposes again mid-ceremony. The groom realized during the ceremony that he forgot the rings at the hotel. He stopped the officiant, got on one knee, and re-proposed with a promise to get them later. The guests laughed, but the bride was embarrassed. I captured the moment, which became a quirky highlight of their album. Story 61. Venue double books. Wedding crashes, another event. The venue double booked, and halfway through the reception, another wedding party arrived, thinking it was their time slot. Guests from both groups argued, and the bride had a meltdown. I had to navigate two crowds for photos, and the chaos made it impossible to stick to the shot list. Story 62. Bride's dog eats part of her veil. During getting ready shots, the bride's dog chewed through half her veil while she was in hair and makeup. She didn't notice until we were about to start portraits. She cried but ended up wearing it torn, and I edited the damage out of the photos as best I could. Story 63. Groomsman proposes during best man speech. The best man, during his speech, suddenly proposed to his girlfriend in front of everyone, stealing the spotlight. The bride was furious, whispering to me to stop photographing it. The groom laughed it off, but the tension was palpable, and I had to edit those photos carefully to avoid drama. Story 64. Torrential rain floods outdoor ceremony. An outdoor wedding ignored weather warnings, and a sudden downpour flooded the ceremony site mid-vows. Guests ran for cover, and the couple finished under a leaky tent. I got soaked trying to protect my gear, but the muddy, drenched photos ended up being a dramatic hit with the couple. Story 65. Bride's mother steals spotlight with karaoke performance. At the reception, the bride's mother, after a few drinks, took over the karaoke machine and sang for 20 minutes straight, refusing to stop. Guests were annoyed, and the bride looked mortified. I captured her embarrassed expression, which she later asked me to remove from the gallery. Story 66. Groom's phone plays inappropriate audio during vows. During a quiet moment in the vows, the groom's phone, left on in his pocket, started blasting an inappropriate song from a playlist. The guests burst out laughing, but the bride was not amused. I caught the moment but had to edit out the audio for the video highlights. Story 67. Caterer serves spoiled food. Guests get sick. Mid-reception, guests started feeling ill from spoiled shrimp served by the caterer. Several left for the hospital, and the bride and groom were livid, stopping the event early. I documented the chaos discreetly, but it was a grim end to what started as a beautiful day. Story 68. Bride's sister announces pregnancy during toast. During her toast, the bride's sister announced her pregnancy, upstaging the couple. The bride smiled through it, but her clenched fists told another story. I kept shooting but avoided focusing on the sister's moment, sensing the bride's frustration, which she later confirmed. Story 69. Photographer's tripod collapses, breaks venue decor. While setting up for group shots, my tripod fell, knocking over an expensive vase at the venue. The crash stopped everything, and the venue manager demanded I cover the cost. The bride was understanding, but I was embarrassed and had to rush through the remaining photos. This video does not promote illegal activity. Stories are shared for commentary and education.